You're listening to Investify, preaching financial independence and assisting investors to achieve a more flexible and free lifestyle through smart financial planning and real estate investing. If leaving the corporate world and jumping into this thriving industry is what you desire, tune in and listen to stories of like-minded individuals who made the leap to financial independence. Equip yourself with the right tips and tricks to start your real estate journey, making active or passive ventures that are highly profitable and rewarding. Here are your hosts, Craig Curelop and Zeona McIntyre.
What's going on, everyone? You are listening to Investify. My name is Craig Curelop, aka the Fi Guy, and I'm here with my co-host Zeona McIntyre. Z Money, what's up, Z?
Hey, thanks for having us. If you guys catch it all the way at the end, Craig is just not thinking, and he's thanking the guest for having us. That's great.
Yeah. Classic. Is that a Freudian slip or? No,
I don't think so. Freudian slip is like if you're really secretly wanting something and then you kind of like say it without, like you're like, oh, I'm going to make a joke or I slipped it out, but
okay,
it's you're withholding something. It's more sexy than that. That was not very sexy.
Oh, damn it. I was hoping to be. So I know it's like a Freudian slip is when you say one thing, but mean your mother.
That was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Dad jokes. Start collecting them now, Craig.
Yep. Start writing them down.
Well, something very exciting happened this week that I want to talk about because it relates to you.
Ooh.
I went on a helicopter tour. And this is one of those things that I'm like, this is why we make money. Like I have been on helicopters, but I forgot how incredibly beautiful it can be and how awe-inspiring it is. And I know recently when we were together at EXPCon, you said you were going to take your dad on a helicopter and we didn't talk about it. So how did that go?
Yeah. So it's been one of my dad's dreams, a huge bucket list item for him to take a helicopter ride over the Grand Canyon. And I remember him saying, yeah, it's just too expensive. We'll probably never get to do it. And so it was his 60th birthday a couple of weeks ago. And so I said, well, what a perfect thing. And by the way, it's not that expensive. I think it's like $600 a pop or something. But to check off like a big bucket list item, to me, that's pretty inexpensive. So, you know, I took my dad, we did a little weekend in Vegas and we did the helicopter ride over the Grand Canyon. And it was amazing. He loved it. And I was inspired from doing a helicopter ride actually in Hawaii, which it sounds like is where maybe you did yours.
Yeah. Oh, did you guys do one when you were here?
Yeah, we went over Molokai and half of Maui and like half of Molokai and came back. Is that what you guys did?
Totally. Yeah, we just did that because we're going to Molokai next week. So yeah, it's just so stunning from the air. That was really, really special. So, add it to your bucket list, guys.
Yeah. And that's one action item. I can say, let's give everybody this one action item. Like in the next month, right? We got the month of maybe January by the time this actually airs. Do something fun, like spend $500 to $700 and like do something that's a bucket list item because those things are what keep you going. And that's what keeps you motivated. And I promise you that experience is worth so much more than you could get anywhere else. So do that.
I love that. All right, Craig, let's bring on our guest, huh?
Yeah, let's talk. So we got a cool guest today, Dan.
We have Dan. We have Dan this week. Dan.
Yeah, when I can't pronounce last names, you all know that I end up just totally blanking. But Dan is a really awesome guest. He's down in Colorado Springs, so pretty close to us, and it's very fitting because, like I say in the show, the Fi team just moved down to Colorado Springs. So if you're down there and you're looking for an investor-friendly real estate agent, hit us up. But Dan's got a really cool story. Started with house hacking, and now he's building this pretty big land development business. And he's only, 25 years old?
Something like that. Pretty impressive.
Yeah. So he's like pushing the Gen Z, or I think he technically is one of us millennials, but he's right on the cusp. So it'll only be a matter of time. Yeah. Dan Haberkost, welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing today?
I'm great. How are you, Craig?
Doing great, man. It's a pleasure to have you here. We've learned a little bit about you, but let's tell the world about you. Tell us, how did you first hear about financial independence?
Yeah, well, thank you both very much for having me on the podcast. I remember listening to you on Bigger Pockets years ago, wondering how I was going to build a business myself. So it was exciting to come and do this. But yeah, that goes back to college. I was about 20 years old when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And like many other people, it was just a light bulb went off. And to backtrack quickly from there, I started working pretty young. When I was 16, I was managing a portfolio of rentals, a farm and a portfolio of rentals. And I worked all through high school and college. And everyone I grew up around, my family, extended family, was lower middle class. And money was just a huge concern all the time. It was constantly causing fear, worry, anxiety. And by the time I got to college and had already been working full time while going to school full time, I decided, no, I don't want that to be the same for me. And so I started reading to figure out how I could change the situation for my life.
Yeah, let's dig into a little bit about your 16-year-old self. So you came from a lower middle class family. Whose rental properties were you managing?
Yeah, so the first job I ever had was on a farm, a tree farm, and he had a portfolio of rentals as well. And so at that point, I'd been working for him and he trusted me. So he gave me his portfolio to handle while he was gone, and the farm as well. And he spent a good portion of the year traveling. So he was my boss.
Did you see that was a way to wealth when you were 16, or were you caught up in who are you going to take to prom and all that kind of stuff?
No, I was caught up in the unpleasantness involved in tearing up carpet covered in dog feces on a 90-degree humid, Cleveland day. So no, that made me want nothing to do with real estate. In hindsight, it taught me not to buy C-D properties and to screen your tenants well, really is what that. But at the time, no, I had no idea. It was just a job. It wasn't really until college.
Okay, so in college, that's when you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Did you have that reflection point where like, oh shoot, back when I was 16 working at this farm, this is what that guy was doing? Like, did you connect those dots or?
It did. It's funny you say that because when I went to buy my first property, I ended up talking to him. I forget why, but I got him on the phone and we chatted through it. And I said, oh, I see why you own all those rentals.
All right. So you did connect the dots. Awesome. So you're 20 years old. You're what, maybe a sophomore or junior in college, reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. What do you do next? Like what action steps do you take?
Yeah. So I was a junior in college. And again, I was working full time. So at that time, I did have a middle-class income. So I ended up going and buying a duplex a few months after. And then that was into my senior year. So I don't know, 5-6 months after. So that was the first big step.
Okay. So so you're in Cleveland going to school, or where'd you go to school?
Right next to Cleveland. I grew up 45 minutes south of Cleveland. Yeah.
Okay. So you're in Ohio somewhere. You go to school and you actually buy what sounds like your first house hack at age 20.
21. I just turned 21. Yep.
21.
The for real deal.
Why don't we dig into the numbers and kind of how you found it and all that kind of stuff?
Okay. I do think it might be a little more useful for your listeners if we dig into the first property I bought in Colorado, because this first one in Ohio was definitely a learning experience and it was a little bit boring, but I have the issue where I jump into things too quickly as opposed to analysis paralysis, which for those of you that tend to overanalyze, it's problematic to dive in too quickly as well, because I did everything wrong. The previous owner made promises that weren't kept, and then I really had no way to come back and make him follow up on those after closing. My realtor didn't really want to help me in hindsight. She just saw me as a way to get another transaction. So I bought it at $134,500, I believe, and this is in Parma, Ohio, which is one of the first suburbs out of Cleveland. And I moved into the unit that was trashed and then went to rent out the other unit.
Yeah, I'm just curious about what things they promised you and why weren't those in the contract? Like, how did that?
There was a couple things. I specifically remember appliances. I think it was all the appliances, because I remember this was a few years, almost 4 years ago now. I remember going back to my realtor and she goes, oh, well, I can't do anything since the transaction is closed. And I just talked with some friends in real estate and they told me that was ridiculous, but it was, it was less than $1,000, which at the time was a meaningful amount of money. But there really wasn't a whole lot I could do. I did somehow found the owner's number and called him, and he just ghosted me. He wouldn't, or the previous owner, I should say, he just ghosted me. So that was one of the mistakes. Why they weren't in the contract in hindsight, I can't tell you. I don't remember at this point.
So let me, as a realtor, and I'm sure you know this yourself, that is the realtor's responsibility to make sure that is explicitly detailed in your contract. Like it includes washer, dryer, refrigerator, like spells out every single appliance. And sometimes you don't end up with the best realtor, right? And so you could blame the realtor, or you could blame yourself, right? Clearly, maybe you didn't look at that contract and couldn't see it as much. And so this is why you listen to this podcast, right? Is so when you're buying a place, make sure the appliances are included if you want them included. If a realtor, this actually just happened to someone on our team. They said in the contract, they said all appliances in the kitchen included. The laundry room, like the washer dryer, was in the kitchen. So we thought, hey, the washer dryer counts. However, they said the washer dryer wasn't in the kitchen, it was in the laundry room. It wasn't very clear in the contract. So the sellers took the washer dryer. So we had to buy a new washer dryer for our clients. And that's what your realtor should have done. And there is actually, it's funny, the most common purchasers of appliances are real estate agents for this exact reason. It happens all the time. That makes sense. Yeah, it happens all the time. So again, it's a great lesson learned. But sorry, keep going. It sounds like there were other things that may have come up.
Yeah. So mistake number 2, previous tenant in the unit that I ended up moving into, he says, oh, well, can I just, and I'm sure you've heard this before, can I just pay last month's rent with the security deposit? Oh, sure. Mistake number 2, of course, then he didn't do much of what he was supposed to. He left trash everywhere. There was a basketball hoop in the backyard, ripped to shreds. It's just garbage everywhere. Didn't clean, nothing. So mistake number 2, definitely do not accept last month's rent via the security deposit. Take rent as you always would, and then refund them the security deposit, assuming that everything was done that they were supposed to and they've taken care of the place. And then the numbers on that one at this point today, it cash flows about $300-400 a month. But at the time, mortgage was just over 1,000 and the other unit was running for 750. So I looked at it as, okay, I'll live in one side, have the vast majority of the mortgage paid by the tenant. But again, a lot of mistakes made on that first deal.
Right. I love that, man. So you sounds like, all right. So just a quick recap, right? Lots of mistakes made, but obviously you overcame them. Real estate tends to be pretty forgiving. $135,000 or $134,500 purchase price. Your mortgage payment was $1,000. You were getting $750 from the other side. So basically you were paying $250 a month to live there. So not quite living for free, which is perfectly fine in a house hack, by the way. I know a lot of people want to live for free, but $250 a month in rent is pretty darn good, I would say, no matter where you live. And so when you moved out of that place, what was it renting for?
$775, I think they got with the other side, the property manager. And that's when I moved to Colorado. So I can talk through that too, because again, I made another mistake and that property manager was a problem. So we can talk through that as well if you'd like.
Yeah. So just a quick recap. So it sounds like you're making about $1,525 on a $1,000 mortgage with you moved out. This doesn't include reserves or property management. So maybe you're cash flowing a couple $100 a month. But you know, you've got a property and it's making you money. So yeah, let's talk about your problems with your property manager.
Yeah, they were terrible. I caught them trying to bill me twice for work that I had just done. And then they apologized and said it was an accident. And they were very slow to respond. Everything was a hassle. They were a pain. And then of course had issues with the tenants they placed with paying on time and constantly having things breaking. So again, I had to rip that Band-Aid off and switch property managers. But today it cash flows and it's gone up quite a bit in value. But I'd rather have learned on a $134,000 property than, you know, a $400,000 or $500,000 property. So that's that.
For sure. You know, that's a good thing with getting in at kind of a cheaper price. I have to ask, how did you pick this property manager that you didn't like?
I got a referral from my CPA at my job actually at the time, and he had used them and he had a good experience with them. But in hindsight, he only had a couple of properties with them. So even a poor property manager can get lucky on a couple. So I should have interviewed more property managers and asked more questions, which I just didn't have. I didn't know what to ask, and probably looked online a little bit more.
Yeah. So I always like, you know, anytime there's a mistake being made, I always like to ask like what you could have done better, right? Because sure, property managers suck, realtors suck, lenders suck, but you can't really solve your problems by just saying everybody else sucks, right? Like what could you have done better?
Yeah.
And you just answered that question. So thank you. And I appreciate you being able to do that.
Yeah, I'm curious just for the listeners, like what did you do the second time? What are the kind of questions you asked that property manager to vet them? Now that you've had a bad experience, I bet you were a little more on it.
Yes. So I got a referral from someone who was doing business as a realtor and who owned a bunch of rentals in the area. And then I asked questions as far as what does their leasing process look like? How do you respond to tenant problems? Went through, of course, the fees. That's important. What can I expect as far as response time? If I have an inquiry, how do I communicate with you? One of the big things is there was just the primary property manager who I was in contact with. I had his cell phone. I could call or text him anytime, whereas that was not the case with the prior one. I went through just my screening parameters that I use here on my rentals. So call their last 2 landlords. I call their boss, background check, verify income, right? You want 3 times income, their income to be 3 times the rent. And they did all the same things that I was doing. And at that point had success with my rentals out here. And then just that being able to call or text him and get a hold of him quickly was a big contrast to the other company. So that plus a referral from someone I knew and trusted a bit more, good reviews online. There's a number of different factors that made sense with this manager.
I love that. So it sounds like you checked all the boxes the second time. And right, so everyone makes that mistake. You take a referral, you blindly take it, and then, oh no, it doesn't work out, right? So again, like the more boxes you can check off, the lower the odds of you having a crappy teammate. And so I think you kind of realize that. And again, it's super easy to fall into that trap. I've fallen into that trap before. I feel like everyone touches that fire.
Yeah.
But yeah, just do your diligence and take a little bit of time to do it. Don't rush into any decisions.
Yes. Don't rush. That is something people like me need to learn.
Awesome. Cool. So it sounds like right after. So what year are we in when you move out of this house hack?
2018.
2018. Okay. And so is that when you moved to Colorado?
Yeah. So I'm just south of you in the Springs.
Okay. So yeah, well, why don't we talk about that transition?
Yeah. So I didn't want to spend my life in Ohio. Not a big fan of the lack of sun. Oh yeah. So my brother lives out here with his wife, and I came to visit, loved the mountains, saw that it was growing and there was opportunity in both business and just, to do hot, enjoy waking up every day. So I moved across the country and I said I was going to build a business and climb all the mountains. So that's what I've been doing. And so let's see, November 2018, I bought my first property here, which was a house hack. And it's on the northeast side of Colorado Springs. And that's been so important. You talk so much about house hacking and renting by the room. And so off the bat, it eliminated my living expense, covered utilities, and cash flowed a couple $100 a month, which is the only reason I was able to leave my job to start an active business.
I love that. And so we actually just expanded down to Colorado Springs. So this is the time in the episode. We got some agents down there now, but I wanted to ask you, what drew you to Colorado Springs, like over Denver or any other place in the country?
Well, my brother lives here, so that's where I came to visit, but I'm very outdoorsy and I love the warm and dry, right? Because it's very much in the contrast to back east. So yeah, that's what drew me here. And your agent comes to my meetup down here and introduced himself. So he's doing what he's supposed to.
Awesome. Ryan, right? You met Ryan?
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Awesome.
I love it. So how did you buy this place? Did you go stay with your brother for a while and look while you were already in town? Or it looks like yes, but sometimes people do the search online before they even get there.
Yeah. So I was with my brother for 3 months, and I remember showing up to the real estate club here that I now host actually about 3 days after moving. And I go up to one of the lenders in the room and I say, I'm going to buy a house hack here. And she goes, oh, that's great. Where do you work? I go, oh, I don't have a job yet. So she kind of wrote me off. Anyways, I ended up getting a W-2 job at Enterprise so I could buy another house, just owner occupied. Started by renting out to 2 guys I worked with. Ended up, that was how I started. Ended up renting out the other bedroom that I had been using as my office. And it's just been a killer property. I left that property beginning of this year and keep it rented by the room. And I'd say one of the biggest things about that house that makes it work is it's in a nice area, quiet neighborhood, backs up to a park, and I will never buy low-end real estate again.
Okay, let's dig into this property a little bit more, right? So it sounds like you're in 2018, 2019 when you first buy this property.
2018.
2018. Okay. And so you get a job at Enterprise. I suspect that you don't want that to be your career. You just want to have a W-2 to get the loan. You kind of just mentioned how the location was great and the house looked good, but like, what was the purchase price on it? Let's get into the numbers a little bit.
Absolutely. So closed on it at $275, and property taxes are much, much lower out here. But I think my interest rate was decently high. So I remember my initial payment was 17-ish, right around 1,700. And then once I got it fully leased up, I had $2,100 a month coming in on that while I lived in it. And the reason that it worked beyond the location and beyond the fact that there's lots of people moving here, so there's a lack of housing, is the way the house was laid out. Remember, real estate is it's a flexible asset. You can make it work, whether it's through value add or financing or how you structure the deal, right? And so in this case, it was a split level where the downstairs is almost its own unit. It doesn't have a kitchen, but separate entrance, bedroom, bathroom, living room. So I rented that for $900, 2 extra bedrooms upstairs for $700 a piece. And I lived in the master. And so a 17-ish hundred mortgage, 2,100 coming in, about 200 a month in utilities. And then I bought it at 275.
Nice. So
that's a 4-bedroom? Is that what it was? Because there was a master and 3. Okay. It's just
4-3.
So was it a 3-bed, 2-bath upstairs and a 1-bed, 1-bath downstairs?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So you rented out the entire downstairs almost as a total unit, probably a little bit more privacy for a little bit more, right? You get more space. Each bedroom is $700 and you decided to take the master. So why did you take the master, right? I know a lot of people that want to take the crappiest room or even the downstairs to have their own space. Like, what was your decision there?
I wanted my own bathroom. So I could have taken the downstairs, but I thought, okay, I can have my own bathroom, but not, because that bedroom I thought of as being worth $700, whereas the basement was worth $900. So where can I have my own bathroom, but take away the lease from rents?
I see. Gotcha. So yeah, perfect reason, right? And so you're basically making money while living there, right? Living for free. It's like a true iconic house hack. And so what did you do? How did you find those tenants in Colorado Springs?
So the first 2 were guys I worked with, but actually since then, I would probably never rent to someone I know again. And I'll tell you, Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, but especially Craigslist, I have consistently got excellent tenants from Craigslist. I've made a lot of money on Craigslist selling other things as well. But Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace mostly. Yeah,
we won't get into the other things you sell on Craigslist.
No, I mean,
yeah, I'm just kidding. But so I've heard Craigslist is kind of a dying breed. What is the secret? Do you have a secret or anything that you do on Craigslist that works?
See, I don't think it's a secret. I think it's that there were a lot of scammers on there, so it got a bad reputation. And I think a lot of people that would sell things on there have just gotten off. I don't know. I'm speculating, but I've gotten more land buyers, more good tenants. I met one of my investment partners initially from an inquiry off a Craigslist ad I had. So it's just been an excellent platform for me. So I'm only speculating, but I mean, as long as you're screening your people, it can be a great resource for tenants.
And so what do you do for pictures? Do you do professional pictures or do you take them yourself?
I took the ones off the listing from when I bought it, honestly. Should
I
not have done that?
Technically, I don't think you're supposed to do that,
Okay.
like legally speaking. So if anyone's listening and you want to play extremely by the rules, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to take your own pictures and use them. However, you probably won't get in trouble, but you could.
Okay.
And so, so that's cool. So the tenants came in, and how did you go about screening those tenants? Is there any particular that you did?
Yeah, absolutely. So background check always. Call their last 2 landlords, call their boss, and let's see, 3 times. I look for 3 times income relative to the rents. If it's close and they have excellent referrals and a strong credit score, then I can be a little flexible on that. But to me, if their boss and their prior landlords tell me they're excellent tenants and they have a strong credit score, it's really hard to go wrong. And then they can't move in without first month's rent and security deposit. And I look at the little things too. The last actual job I had was screening. It was a staffing job. So I was screening people for just positions. And, if they tell me they're going to be there at 10 and they're there at 10:10, if they tell me they're going to have the application done today and they don't have it done, no, they're gone. I can't stress enough. I'd rather have an extra month of vacancy, which I've never had, but an extra month of vacancy and get a good tenant than allow that sort of thing to slip. And those little things are really important.
Yeah, I love that. And we say this all the time, right? The only thing worse than no tenant is a bad tenant, right?
Yes.
And so opt for the no tenant every time. And I will say, I've done my fair share of tenant screening. I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands, of house hackers and real estate investors, and I've never met anyone who had a bad tenant with a good credit score, right? Yeah. So I think credit score is like the number one important thing. Now, I have met people like, that's not the only thing you do, right? Because there are times where they mess up. So definitely make sure you check all the boxes. But I would say make sure you don't skip out and I personally like to keep my credit score minimum at like 650. And if they're below that, no thanks. Is
Yep.
you have something to add? Are you gonna fight me?
Yeah, I'm just laughing. No, I'm laughing because
Oh.
I am literally thinking about a person right now who has like all the good story to match their bad credit score. But I'm just like, I've been teetering on it since Thanksgiving. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm pretty sure I don't want to do that. So hearing it from both of you, I'm like, I'm gonna just wait for the next person. I got a couple weeks. We can find somebody.
It's so easy to just like make exceptions because the person's nice or they have a good story. And if you're like empathetic at all, but you have to literally be like a robot. Like,
yes,
you don't meet it. That's it. Sorry, you're kicked out. Like,
yep.
Yeah. My 2 cents.
I'll say a couple other thoughts, especially if you're house hacking and people are living with you. Obviously, that can be uncomfortable, right? It's non-traditional. But if you set your expectations very clearly, that makes a difference too. So what I would always say is, don't pay me past the first. Do not leave a mess in the kitchen, and don't make noise at night. I'm a very early riser and early to bed, and we'll be fine. And what do you know? I've had no issues because I'm very clear with my expectations with people, and that is super important. And then just real quick along your line of thinking there, if tenants are always the victim in their story, not good. If someone's always a victim and it's always everyone else's fault, that's a bad sign.
I love that.
I'm just giggling to myself because I'm thinking about you as like a roommate. I'm just like, man, this guy does not sound like the life of the party. He's like, no late payments. Don't make noise. If I see a dish, I'm tired of you. You're out.
Oh, by the way, lights out 7 p.m. Yeah. Before the street lights come on. Yeah.
Well, good. I hope that in that context, I would prefer people think that way. Yes.
Yeah, I love it. So living with your roommates, let's talk about that for a little bit. Like, how is that dynamic? How do you I feel like me personally, when I was living with my roommates and my tenants, it's kind of hard, like, not to be friends or friendly with them, right? Like, you're a good person. So like, how do you juggle that relationship and kind of like landlord versus friend?
That's a great question. In general, a lot of people inadvertently leave question marks at the end of their statements. And then people find quickly that that person can be taken advantage of. And I think, I don't know, holding up your end of the bargain, speaking confidently, being clear in your expectations is really important. So on the flip side of everything I requested from them, if there was any problem, if anything needed fixed, I would handle it or get it handled immediately. I would keep the kitchen clean on my end. I wouldn't make noise at night. So I think there's always generally a reciprocity if you're dealing with decent people, which, assuming you screened them correctly, then you probably are, that they'll want to reciprocate that. So I am speculating. That's a good question. I don't know. What do you think? Both of you have house hacked, right? Would you agree? You have other thoughts?
Yeah. So I can kind of talk to my experience is that I'm friendly, but I try not to be friends, right? Like, we may go out. I think I've gone out and grabbed a beer with my roommates a couple of times. But I try not to make it like an everyday thing. I try not to become their best friends. And then in the event where something comes up and I have to handle an issue, I'm like, okay, like right now, I'm not your friend. I am your landlord. I'm putting my landlord hat on and like, this is the role I'm playing. And I'm like, this is what the lease says. This is what you promised. This is what's happening. We need to change this. And that's kind of like just kind of labeling the roles, especially when you're the landlord, because most times you're just roommates. Like, most times there's no issues, but they may come up once in a while. So that's how I handle it.
Something you just said there, you used the lease as the bad guy so that you're not the bad guy. And that's smart. If there's something like that, oh, well, fair housing laws, or, oh, the lease, or, that really is a good way to make it so that you're not the bad guy. And to your point, a lot of them were twice my age. I've rented to a lot of divorcees, or just, I don't know, for whatever reason, people that weren't my age. So that helped. Obviously you can't, that's just a coincidence. You can't pick people by age, but so I never really had an issue where I became friends with them. Just casual, pleasantries.
Yeah. And so how do you handle that, right? How do you handle someone who's in their 40s or 50s that wants to live with you?
Those have been the best tenants. I mean, I had a guy with an 800 credit score rent a room for me for well over a year. He went to work, got home late, went to bed, went out with friends, never saw him. I mean, I had a guy, so he was in his probably 30s. He worked down in Canyon City, so about an hour south of me, and he worked the night shift. I wouldn't see him for weeks, and he was in the room right across from the master. So just renting to people that work a lot has really helps the whole dynamic. And another thought, I'm glad you said this real quick. I want to get this in. Make sure, like if you have a 4-3 and there's going to be 4 people in the house, you don't want 4 people who all work at 9 a.m. If you have that, everyone's going to get up and want to use the shower and then use the kitchen at the same time. So, when I was at that carousel house, the one we've been talking about, I had the night shift guy. I'd get up around 5. The other guy would get up 7-ish. And then the girl had a late retail job. She'd get up at 10. So it worked really well. So that sort of thing is important to take into consideration as well.
Gosh, that is really smart. I love hearing that because I'm like, I wouldn't have even thought to ask, when do you wake up? I have lived with people and asked these kind of questions of like how clean they are and stuff, but it's a great question. I was just going to put in my 2 cents from having house hacked. The type of house hacking I've done has mostly been Airbnb. And so it's different than you guys, where I've just been, let's be like best friends for the next 3 days, so you really lean into that person. And obviously you let them kind of lead whether or not they want to do that. But it's been kind of a different experience. So I lean on being more friendly, but I do love that Craig said, make the third person the least the bad guy, and so that you guys can still have a relationship. So that's great. All good points.
Okay, man. Well, I think we've dug pretty deep into these first 2 houses. It sounds like you've got a third one that you purchased in 2021.
So I have 5 houses now, 3 of which are house hacks. So the one that I'm sitting in right now, this one was a little more interesting. I'm actually doing a talk on this next week at the real estate group down here because I bought it in June. I closed on it in June, so I got it under contract in April. It was a long closing period.
We're in 2021 right now?
Yeah.
Okay, April 2021. Okay, cool.
Yep. So in the midst of one of the craziest frenzies, right? Craziest seller's market. And I wish I had my points from my presentation for next week in front of me, but it worked really well because it was a combination of value add and distress and motivation because they wanted to just get out and close on the next house. A number of different factors that cause motivation kind of came together, and then add in an incompetent realtor, which I'm sure both of you deal with all day long. And I was able to, closed on this at 327.5. It appraised at 340. And let's see, so I put 5% down. I added a bathroom, which cost me $7,000, and then it rents. So I have $2,300 a month coming in on rent on a, $2,600 a month coming in on rent on a $1,670 mortgage while I live in it. And then I also rented out the master bedroom at that other house, and that went for $800 a month. So this was a great move.
Wow. Okay. So you left that other house. I believe you said you were getting $2,100 in rent prior. So now you're adding $800 on top of that. So $2,900 on a $1,700 mortgage on the first Colorado Springs house.
So that house, let's see, it's 7, 7, 8, and 9. So 17. So yeah, whatever that comes out to. And then that mortgage is down to $1,470 because I refied it.
Okay, so you're pushing almost $1,500, $2,000 over the mortgage for that house. So that's a cash cow, and that's the stuff we see this in Denver too. Like this is what a house hack in Denver looks like. So that's why we were like, oh, there's no way you can cash flow $1,000 a month. Like that's BS. We do it all day. We do it. And so the second one is pretty interesting too, right? So can you run us through the number? So you purchased it for $335.
So $327.5 I closed on it at, and there was quite a bit in concessions there. And so think about what areas of expertise you have or advantages you have because of people you know. So one of the biggest reasons, because I initially had it under contract at 340, which is what it appraised at, but there was a big crack in the foundation. And what do you know? I have a friend who owns a foundation repair company. It's all he's done his whole life. So I had him come and look at it, and he goes, I would buy this in a heartbeat. It is visually much, much worse than reality. This moved decades ago. There's no signs that there's any impending issue, right? So that got me quite a bit off. And then the house was just gross too. So yes, $327.5 purchase, $1,600 mortgage, $2,600 a month coming in on rents while I live in it.
So were you back into your old days of ripping up poop, carpet, and everything? Was it like reminiscent of being 16-year-old you? You're just like, here I am.
This was gross. I got my brother and his wife over here, and then her family, they'll come and help, and did some painting. I had my contractor build out a new bathroom downstairs. So that was part of it. It was a 5-2 with 2 bathrooms upstairs, and it's a tri-level. And so that basement had its own living space, but no bathroom, but there was space for it. So I added that. So the basement goes for $1,200 a month, 2 bedrooms upstairs for $7, one of the bedrooms is just an office. I don't want another person. And then I live in the master on my own little level with my own little living space up here. So it works really well. And I've got a balcony. I was laying out there in the sun looking at the mountains before we got on. So it's not bad.
So $7,000 for a bathroom, that sounds relatively inexpensive. So were you able to like look at the house and be like, okay, I can add this cheaply? Like, what did you look for to be able to add that bathroom for so cheap?
That's a great question. So I wish I could show you. I'm very visual and most people are, but to try and describe it, in the basement, there was a walled off portion that was, I don't know, 9x6, 9x7, it looked like, and it had the plumbing all exposed from the bathroom upstairs. The upstairs bathroom's directly above it. So I thought, I can't imagine it's that hard to add a bathroom. Sent out some pictures to a few of the contractors I know, which again, relationships, you got to know people, and got bids back right away. So that was all factored into it. I was expecting to pay a little bit more, but this contractor likes me. I've done him favors, and so he's doing another rehab for me right now. So anyways, yeah.
Nice. I love that. Right. And I think like, look to see where the pipes are and look to see where the bathrooms are above you and below you, because like next time you go into a building, even a commercial building, you'll see like the bathrooms are on the same spot in every level.
Yep.
Right. In every house, the bathroom is either below the kitchen or another bathroom. Like water usually only flows through one side of the house. Once you start looking at that, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And that's a great way to do it. And so you mentioned the whole house is gross. So did you like replace the carpets and the floors and the paint? Like what did the whole rehab run you?
The rehab. So I painted everything in the kitchen and then cleaned everything thoroughly, steam cleaned the carpets. But for house hacking, it works. So that new bathroom plus, maybe I spent $500 upstairs on paint and miscellaneous supplies and then closing costs. So I think all in off the top of my head, I was between 25 and 30, I think.
Wow.
So not bad because I got a little bit of equity based on the appraisal too, just off of getting it a little bit under appraised value.
And are you doing the traditional thing of like furnishing most of the common areas and like the kitchen? It sounds like you're not. Yep.
No. So I disagree with this. For people who move all their stuff in, don't want to move out. People who don't have stuff to move in and want to use your stuff can move out really easily. So I had the girl that's been running my basement over at Carousel has been there over 2 years. She's not going anywhere. She's moved her whole life in there. She likes it. She loves the neighborhood. So one of the most important lessons I've learned that I don't hear in the books or on podcasts is longevity of tenants. We talk about how great getting deals are, great getting your deal is, which is correct. Absolutely. You make money on the buy most of the time. But if you get a tenant that stays 10 years versus turnover every 2 years, that's a huge expense.
Yeah. So I totally get not letting out, not giving them beds and desks and stuff in their personal rooms or even in the basement if the basement's all theirs. But what about the things that everyone's going to share? Kitchens, kitchen table, TV room, that kind of stuff.
That's a good question. So in the last house, I had a table and 2 couches in the TV room and a kitchen table. This one, I just have a kitchen table. And then the living room for upstairs is just up by my master. So they don't come near it. They don't use it anyway. So it's just a kitchen table in this house.
Wow. Okay. So you're very limited on the furnishings. Z?
Yeah, I would say that's like such a dude thing too, because like what it's gonna give you is like a total mishmash. It's like this person's gonna have a weird leather couch and this one's gonna have like a Goodwill table, So it's gonna not photograph as well and like things like that. So I see where you're going.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I agree.
Well, okay, no,
we all have different strokes, right? Yeah. Different strokes for different folks.
Yep. That's a good point. Yeah. The girl that's in the basement, the other house, she would always make the house nice and decorate and flowers and stuff. And so that always helped, kind of spruce things up a bit.
Yeah. I just think it's like, whatever your situation is, whatever works best for you. Like I've heard people furnish the whole place and have a lot of success with even furnishing the bedrooms. You had a lot of success, doing your thing. So again, it's every podcast you listen to, every book, every piece of advice you hear, absorb it and figure out if that's best for you. You don't have to take every piece of advice. Z.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I'm curious with the other property that you moved out of in Colorado Springs, did you get a manager or are you just managing it all because you're in one area?
Well, so my acquisitions manager from my active business has been filling vacancies there and that sort of thing for me. So technically I'm still managing it, but she wants to learn. So I've just been offloading things to her and paying her and teaching her at the same time. So, I mean, I don't really do much. And again, having nice tenants in a nice house requires far less management. So
For sure.
Yeah.
Less tenants is good. So in Colorado Springs, it sounds like you did a pretty turnkey house hack, and then you had to put some work in. Which one would you recommend? Like, which one, if you have to do it over again, which one would you do again?
Oh, great question. So that depends where you're at in your business or job. I have a buddy who's a doctor, and he was doing some repairs on his house. He makes $300-400 an hour. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Go hire someone. So if that's you, where you're a well-paid business owner, or you have a high-paying job, then I would go for the turnkey model with house hacking. Personally, you'll get it rented immediately. Nice houses get you nice tenants. On the flip side of that, if you're still, maybe you're not making a whole lot of money from your job, you're just getting your business started, I think it's worth putting the time in, maybe to make the house nice yourself and save some money there.
There you go. Love it. And so you got 3 house hacks. It sounds like you've picked up 2 non-house hacks, just traditional rental properties. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? And it sounds like that's going to kind of lead into where you are now.
Yeah. So one of them was through a wholesaler. And this is kind of a fun story. A couple lessons I can pull out of this. So this was beginning of 2020. And I don't know if of course you both go to real estate meetups, and every week someone shows up and they say they're a new wholesaler, because we all hear about that as a low and no money down thing, but people don't realize how difficult it is. So usually they disappear. So a girl shows up, says she's a wholesaler, and she was super shy. So I'm like, oh gosh, you're going to have a hard time. But I gave her my contact info, because what's the worst that could happen? Well, next day she sends me a deal. And at this point, she accidentally shared her cash buyers list on her drive, along with all the pictures. 4 people on it, me being one of them. So not a lot of people knew about it. It is up. I don't know how familiar you are with the Springs, but it's up off of Woodman, right up against a park in the best school district, really nice section on the north side of town. But it was just the nasty house in a really nice neighborhood. I get my inspector up there to come with me for the walkthrough, and all the bones are solid. It just needs a complete cosmetic rehab. That's it. It was just 1,000 square foot 2-2. So really simple. And picked that one up through the wholesaler and got the tenants out, thankfully, without any issue. Which, important note there, the son was a wanted felon who had just gotten out of prison, and the cops ended up showing up again. So he was very emotional, let's put it that way. And then his quote unquote girlfriend actually turned out to be a prostitute. He was paying to pretend to be his girlfriend. So the only reason I think we got him out of the house is because spent a couple hours talking with them, empathized with them, helped them look for a rental, and got them out without issue. I watched them get in a fight on the front yard. So these were easily combustible people. So taking time to empathize with people and talk to them is really important. But anyways, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think what you did there was you solved the problem, right? And it was a problem that you wouldn't typically solve. Like, their problem wasn't just buy their house. It was, I need to find a new place to live. And then obviously there was some emotional there. So you had to make sure that you kept your emotions at ease. You kind of guide them through that. So I love that. And you mentioned this kind of newbie wholesaler who gave you a deal. Maybe she knew it was a better deal than she thought it was. How did you buy this thing, right? Like, how much did it cost? Because I'm pretty sure with wholesales, they're not really going to do like a traditional mortgage.
Yeah. So this one, and then the other house I didn't buy via house hacking, I bought with a partner. So he's the doctor I was referencing earlier. And so we just went and got a traditional loan. And then I did more of the work. He put up more of the money and brought the financing. And we got that thing rehabbed it ended up being very cheap, because it was a small house, just cosmetic. It was, I want to say, less than 10 grand. Rented it out to a nice young couple. They're just renewing again at a higher rate, even though it's not, it's 3 or 4 months away until renewal. They just texted me because they love the house. So again, that shows the importance of nice houses in nice areas. You get great tenants, and they'll stay in the long term.
What did you buy it for?
200K.
And then do you know what the wholesaler made on it?
15.
Okay. So she had it for 185. You bought it for 200. And were you happy to pay that 200, even though she got it for 185?
I mean, of course, we would prefer to have gotten it lower, but yeah, in hindsight, perfectly happy. Nice. The area can't be replaced. You cannot pick up and move houses. So backs up to a park, great school district, great section of town. So very happy that we own that.
Right. And I just want to say, like, a lot of times it's a win-win, right? Where, maybe obviously you want to get it lower, but you'd be squeezing the profit out of the wholesaler. Maybe the wholesaler wouldn't be happy. And so a lot of people are in this to make money, right? And so it sounds like the seller was happy with 185.
Yeah.
You're happy with 200. The wholesaler got you guys together, and she earned that 15,000. So everyone should be happy there. It's a win-win-win.
Yep.
See.
Yeah. What did it appraise for? Did you mention that?
Oh gosh, I believe 240, and I think we only put 8 into it. So a little bit of the spread there, and it's worth quite a bit more today.
Yeah. So that's great all around.
Yeah, rent 1725, $1,100 mortgage.
But yeah, there's no deals in Colorado Springs or Denver or anywhere anymore, right? It's just too expensive to get in.
Oh, this is going to be the focus of my talk next week at the meetup. Just the things that people complain about today. If it was 2008 and people are hurting and lenders are scared and everyone's scared, you're not going to buy then if you're not going to buy now. That's my opinion. And I mean, that's more to newer people. Maybe if you're wealthy already, that's different. But anyways, I don't want to get off on a tangent there.
Yeah, no, I think it's funny that everyone's waiting for this crash, but I think what really is going to happen is even if there is a crash, it really will probably just be a slowing down increase, but it will still be an increase, right? So you'll still be better off buying today than you would be buying a year from now.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens though. Who knows?
Yeah.
Cool, man. So I think we are headed off into the final part of the show. Z, is there anything you want to add before we get there?
Well, Dan, do you have any final words of wisdom for us?
Oh man, yeah. If I think most of your listeners are newer investors, the biggest things I would say is don't get caught up in what Craig just went through, in that you're worried that the market's going to crash. In 2017, I remember listening to podcasts where people were preparing for the obvious impending crash, and I was scared to buy my first property. When I bought the first Colorado Springs property, I was certain that it was going to crash. But hey, I got to live somewhere. That thing is worth in the mid 4s. I bought it at 275. So maybe the market will crash, but if you buy solid real estate that cash flows in good areas and your own financial situation is under control, that's key. Because even if the market's going up, but you're responsible, it doesn't matter. You need to be responsible in your own finance. Then it's hard to go wrong. So that's the first thing I'll say. A couple other thoughts there.
I think that's so funny. I actually just did a TikTok on that exact thing where people, because this is exactly what happened to me. I purchased in 2017. Everyone was scared. I purchased anyway, right? I purchased a duplex in a really up and coming part of Denver for $385,000. The thing's worth over $600,000 today.
That's
right?
fantastic.
And it's like, oh no, like if I would have waited, right? Like you're talking like probably close to like in the millions of dollars that I probably would have left out if I just like didn't buy any houses from 2017 till today.
One other thought along that train of thought is you're developing skills that add zeros to your income. So that's what I love about real estate is I don't have to think, oh, okay, if I made X this year, how do I make 120% X? How do I make 10 times X? That's feasible. I'm doing that right now in my active business. I'm going to do it again next year. And you can do that in both the investing, with buying the assets, moving to larger assets, and then also the active businesses, in my world, that's land and development. But so getting started is key because you learn to make so much money down the road that those first couple deals don't matter at all. It's that you got started and you learned that matters.
Love that. I love that. So you've mentioned your active business a couple of times. I think we should at least touch on it. What is your active business?
So Front Range Land, I built a marketing system to buy land off market at a discount, and I sell some for cash. I sell some on notes where I carry the financing, then I build on the prime parcels. So right now, 3 houses going as far as new builds, several in process as far as being sold, and then I have a bunch of notes. And that has been an excellent means for scaling my income so that I can then go buy more and more properties. So really transitioning into next year, the biggest thing I need to figure out is how to bring my investing up to the level of the active business now, because I'm pretty simple. I spend money on outdoor activities and not much else. I don't really care about fancy things. So I need to figure out what to do with all this cash. And so I'm going to be looking at some commercial buildings next year, but that's a whole nother conversation.
So where's your cash flow now on your homes, and where are you trying to get it to? Because it sounds like you're saying you want to build it up.
That's a great question. I'm doing a lot of thinking right now as far as where I want to go. So let's see. I haven't even totaled it because I don't really look at it as cash flow. It's marginal. I think of it as holding the asset for the long term and what it's doing for me as far as tax benefits, and then the appreciation of the assets or hedging against the inflation of the dollar or the depreciation of the dollar. So if there's a little over $1,000 from care, it's a couple $1,000 bucks, $2,500 to $3,000 a month. But I mean, have a friend of mine who owns a bunch of strip centers, and he's making hundreds of grand a month. So that's what I'm looking at, is how to go and move into that space. So it's a few $1,000s, but that just got me started. That was just training wheels, right? That's how I look at it.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to say that like, it's not nothing. Like even $3,000 a month where you live for free at a place, like that is financial independence for so many people. And so It is cool to show that you were able to do that in 3 years.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because who you're around and who you talk to every day changes your perspective. But absolutely, if you talked to me a couple of years ago and I'm working a traditional job with a traditional income, yeah, that's super powerful. And then the beauty of it is, once you have that, you get out of the fear mindset. You're not worried about, can I pay my mortgage, or can I pay for food, or, if something breaks, can I fix it? You can think about, well, how do I go make 10x, right? Or how do I go do bigger deals? It frees you up to go try new things and fail at them for a while you figure them out, right? So it took me a while to get my active business going. Made a lot of mistakes there too, but that's a great point. I'm glad you stopped me there. And house hacking is one of the best ways to get that started, because if your living expenses are covered, you have a lot of freedom. I would have never been able to leave my job if I hadn't done that.
So basically, I say this all the time too, but I'll say it again, is you're no longer playing not to lose. You're playing to win, right? Like you're all on offense. Your defense is covered, right? Your personal expenses are covered with your rental properties. Now you can focus on just growing that passive income. So, maybe someday you can have a house to yourself, right? Maybe someday you can live on a nice piece of land and have all the shiny objects you want, or whatever, right? But like, you could just, the life is now in your hands.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly that. So I'm glad you stopped on that point.
The final four.
All right, Dan, what are you reading right now?
Freakonomics.
Really? That's an old one, but it's good.
So actually, I made a rule. I will not read any new books until they're tried and true. And I have read so many books in the last couple of years that were touted as being great, that were new, that I was just the same recycled. So I've gotten away from new books. It's got to be, it doesn't have to be. If it comes highly recommended, I'll read it. But generally, I read older books, and I don't read a lot of real estate or motivation sort of books anymore. I read a lot of history and science and that sort of thing. I could rant about this forever because I love reading, but Charlie Munger, Poor Charlie's Almanac is excellent. And then all the books he recommends within that are also excellent. And just his framework of applying concepts from different, not industries, but areas of life, and showing how these things are applicable across the board, I think is really useful. So that's highly recommended, is Poor Charlie's Almanac.
Oh,
love it. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh gosh, I remember when I was 19, I had a financial advisor tell me that the money you invest in your 20s, if you're thinking of an exponential curve here, right? The money you invest in your 20s is worth more than the money you invest through your 30s, 40s, and 50s. Now, there's a lot of variables there. I don't actually know if it works out in practice exactly like that, but conceptually, right, time, the longer the compounding has to take place, the better off you are. So I really took that to heart. And sure, I don't always love having roommates. And, I actually, just until last week, I'd had the same car since I was 19, but hey, I'm 25. So I took that advice and applied it. And that's been huge. Now, for those listeners that perhaps are a little further down the road, don't feel bad. That means right now is the most important time to start investing, because then it gives that compounding the time to take place, right? Exponential functions grow exponentially over each iteration.
I love that.
I really love that. Yeah, I think I just never heard it put that way, to tell people that the money that they're going to invest early on is going to be worth more. So yeah, that's a great way to frame it. Okay. Question number 3. What is your why?
Yeah, it goes back to childhood. I just remember my parents, siblings older, cousins older, aunts, uncles, everyone was broke, and money was such a worry. A lot of my friends were, and it's just kind of, that's where it's what it's like in a lot of the Midwest. And having gone through high school and college, and all I remember was working. And so it was right around the time I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad that I was frustrated. I'm not going to do the same thing that my parents and everyone else did. I'm going to go figure out how to make money so I have freedom. Again, it's not about the things. I just want freedom. I want to buy my parents a house, pay off my siblings' debts, that sort of thing, and then also be able to take care of my own family when I have one. So that's really it. It's just freedom and be able to help the people I care about. And then also, you know, a little bit of selfishness there, having the freedom to go snowboard and climb and hike and do all that sort of thing that I love to do.
Great. I love that, dude. I love it. What is the most expensive thing you've ever broken?
Oh man, last week I bought a brand new snowboard at Evo in Denver and bindings. It was like $800. It got stolen a few days later. So maybe that, because I don't know if I've broken anything. I wasn't expecting this question. Man, I don't know that. Although that's not me breaking it, that's probably one of the bigger losses. Or maybe just the cost of having a bad tenant at that Ohio property with that old property manager. It cost me 10 grand. So maybe I didn't break it, but through my poor screening of my property manager, I did. Yeah.
It's funny. I think like nothing feels worse than that moment when you realize something got stolen from you, right? Yeah. Like I think I may have shared this story on the podcast before, but like maybe a couple of months ago, I'm training for an Ironman, right? So I'm swimming in the pool in my gym, and I literally have like my house hacking t-shirt, which by the way isn't that nice, and like a pair of shorts with my keys in it. And I go and I take a shower and I come back and I open the locker and my clothes are gone. Like I have nothing. I'm like sitting here in a towel with nothing. I'm like, how the hell do I get out of here? Like I'm naked basically. And so I just sort of that feeling being like, oh shit, like what do I do? So I call my girlfriend at the time, like literally just laughing hysterically because I just feel like such an idiot. I'm like, she's like, are you serious? Like, you actually don't have your clothes? And I was like, yeah, like I need you to come to the gym and bring me some clothes and just like tell the front people, like, yeah, just give me my clothes. And so, but yeah, just that feeling of like, oh shit, weird.
It's a bad feeling.
Yeah. So anyway, Dan, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, I have a website, just my name, Dan Haberkost, or just on Instagram or Facebook. You'll see lots of pictures of the mountains and then projects I'm doing, Dan Haberkost.
Sounds good, man. We'll have to get out for a hike sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, hey, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was awesome to hear about your story. It's crazy because you're also pretty young and you're well on your way, which is amazing. You're doing a lot of big things. And and I love that you also like help spreading the word by coming on shows like this, by presenting at meetups and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, if you're in Colorado Springs or in the Denver area, definitely hit Dan up, or heck, if you even just want to pick his brain, hit him up.
Sure. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, Z, that was Dan Haberkost. What'd you think?
Yeah, I thought it was a really great episode. Dan has a way, and you could just kind of tell that he's been running meetups, but it's like he has a really good, clear way of breaking down concepts. And so I thought there were some really smart nuggets in there about how he's screening tenants, the way that he's trying to do tenant retention, some of his pieces of advice. He's just really thoughtful and clear. So I thought it was a great episode.
He's very eloquent. I think he went and kissed the Blarney Stone because he was given the gift of eloquence for sure. And he, like you said, he explains everything really clearly. And again, very impressive for how young he is. And definitely someone that I think is at this point very approachable, but in the next couple of years may not be very approachable. So I highly recommend, if you do want to get into anything with land or even house hacking or whatever, obviously, you can reach out to Z and I, but feel free to reach out to Dan too. I think he'd be happy to help at this point.
Yeah. And just super knowledgeable. And I really love that they pointed out, like you and him both kind of brought up this idea that if you wait, you may be missing a huge opportunity. And so definitely run your numbers, wait for the right deal, but maybe not wait forever. So I think that was a really good theme of today's episode.
For sure. Just like, if you ever know about index fund investing and all that, like it's better just to keep buying, buy at the highs, buy at the lows, and over time you'll do okay, than trying to time the market, because no one can time the market. And if someone could time the market, I can guarantee you they would probably be 100 times richer than Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, and Bill Gates combined, right? No one is able to time the market. So don't try to do things that no one can do. Just do things that stay in your control, and your market is something that you just can't control. And I'm glad that I bought back in 2017. Z, when did you buy your first property?
2014. So yeah, those have come up a lot. Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah. So again, great episode, great piece of tons and tons of advice. And please, if you like the show, if you like Z and I, or if you think there's ways that we can improve, like please leave us rating and review on iTunes and wherever else you can. Shoot us a DM on Instagram. I'm at the Fi Guy. Z, what's your handle?
Zeona McIntyre.
Zeona McIntyre. And let's make it happen. Let's grow something together. So thank you all so much for listening. We will see you next week.
That's it for this episode of Investify. We hope that these nuggets of real estate wisdom lead to more savvy financial planning and a clearer path towards financial freedom. For more content like this, subscribe to the show at investify.com. Don't forget to leave a rating and share it with your friends. Together, we can transform more real estate newbies into successful and clever investors. Thank you so much for listening. See you on the next one.